Listen. I've finally got the son I've always wanted. So, I'm divorcing you. My husband happily announced it to me. Son. Typically, when one mentions a son in the context of a husband, it should refer to a son born by his wife. However, I'm not pregnant. On top of that, after giving birth to our first daughter, I've been unable to conceive a son and have felt constant pressure. Now my husband has a son. This clearly means that another woman has borne him a son. Indeed, he brought home a woman in her early 20s and a baby boy only a few months old. I was so shocked by the sudden turn of events that I was left speechless. This is also for the sake of the company. You understand, right? Even mom is thrilled that there's finally a boy. You, with your useless daughter, just get out. The pressure from my husband and mother-in-law to have a son has been there since we got married, and now it seems my husband had an affair because I couldn't produce one. I can endure the abuse directed at me, but my daughter is undoubtedly his child. Yet, he wants to throw us both out, something I absolutely cannot tolerate. However, just as I was about to express my anger, my daughter, who had been silently observing, said something shocking. What she said stunned all the adults present. She would soon send my husband and his mistress plummeting to rock bottom. I am a 40-something part-time employee at a supermarket, juggling work with household and parenting duties. My husband, Ken, also in his 40s, is the executive of a small family-owned printing company. The company is run by his brother, the third-generation CEO. The founder was my mother-in-law's father, and Ken's father took over. As such, my mother-in-law has a strong sense of family pride and has made my life difficult since I married Ken. When a distant aunt, who handled the accounting, fell ill and took a sudden 2-week leave, I offered to help temporarily due to my accounting experience before marriage, but was rejected because I was an outsider in the family business. Honestly, I don't know how far the term family extends. Am I not considered family? Moreover, the discrimination my mother-in-law showed towards her own son was extreme. She doted on Ken excessively and was quite resistant when his brother was set to take over the company. However, it was actually my father-in-law who managed the company, and after observing how the two sons handled work and client relations, my mother-in-law was finally persuaded to let Ken's brother take over. Ken's brother got married in his late 20s and lived with his in-laws as the heir, but they had difficulty conceiving. The pressure from my mother-in-law was tremendous, and his wife was berated daily for not having a son and was continuously insulted for her infertility. By the time she was in her late 40s, it seemed my mother-in-law had given up on grandchildren, but his wife still faced harassment for not having children. Ken's brother always tried to intervene, but my mother-in-law is stubborn and hasn't changed her attitude. Ken and I married around the same time as his brother, and we were in our early 20s at the time, but it wasn't until our late 20s that we had our daughter, Anna. I had been pressured to have children ever since we got married, and I was so stressed I thought I might become neurotic, so I was incredibly happy when I got pregnant. However, once it was confirmed, the next question at every checkup was, when will you know the gender? They only wanted a boy. I will never forget the disappointed looks on my mother-in-law's and Ken's faces when they found out I was having a girl. My mother-in-law, despite being told repeatedly that it was a girl, prepared boys' clothes and even tried to pick a boy's name on her own, doing unbelievable things. Gradually, I began to feel like a failure for not being able to have a boy, and I unjustly blamed my unborn child for not being a boy. But that changed the day I first felt the baby move. The moment I felt the baby's presence inside me, I resolved to protect it at all costs, no matter what. The harassment from my mother-in-law continued, and even on the day I gave birth, Ken didn't come to the hospital, and I gave birth to Anna alone. After being discharged from the hospital, the first time my mother-in-law saw my daughter, she said, "Next time, have a boy," and didn't look at her any further. Life became even harder after my daughter, Anna, was born. While I was struggling with the care of an infant and household chores, barely sleeping, Ken didn't help at all. Moreover, a month after giving birth, he demanded a son next time. I was too exhausted from childcare to have the strength to agree, and when I refused, he became sulky and it was really troublesome. As Anna grew, and because we didn't conceive again, Ken gradually became colder, and now that Anna is in high school, they hardly talk at all. Ken and my mother-in-law didn't participate in any of Anna's ceremonies. Ken even forgot his own daughter's birthday, went out drinking, and sometimes came home completely drunk. Anna and I would wait for hours in front of a fancy dinner and cake, hoping for him to come home. It was heartbreaking to see her like that. Growing up hearing, "Girls are useless and it's a waste of money to spend on a girl," from Ken and my mother-in-law, it was natural that Anna didn't grow close to them, and now Ken is just a housemate to us. Meanwhile, since my brother-in-law and his wife had no hope of conceiving, my mother-in-law pressured me in my early 40s, saying it was my last chance to have a boy. Given our age and the fact that our marriage was already failing, it was impossible to try for another child. And if by some chance it was another girl, I couldn't think of having any more children with Ken. I'm so tired of being told the same thing for years. At that time, the management of the company where Ken was the executive worsened, and his salary was significantly reduced. Being a director, his salary was cut more than that of regular employees. The cause was a dispute with a major client, and the contract was terminated. Ken blamed his incompetent brother for his troubles and didn't seem worried even in this emergency. Losing a major client could be a crisis level for a small printing company, but does he not feel the urgency? Our household income was unavoidably reduced. I tried to help out with our finances and asked Ken about becoming a full-time employee since there was a chance at my current job to move from part-time to full-time. However, Ken strongly opposed it. He said it would neglect home responsibilities and there would be a loss of face for him, essentially meaning women should just quietly obey men. But if things continue as they were, we would barely manage to pay rent and utility bills, let alone provide for Anna's allowance or her commuting costs. Considering this, perhaps his pride was hurt, but Ken turned red and said that until his salary returned to normal, Anna would get no allowance and should either walk or cycle to school. Since cycling wasn't an option due to the distance, Anna, seeing my dilemma, started working part-time at a cafe to earn her own money. I was proud of my strong daughter, yet felt nothing but irritation towards the prideful Ken. Although opposed by Ken, I couldn't take any overt actions, but I talked about my situation and managed to get some work I could do from home to increase our income. Amid this stretched financial situation, suddenly Ken brought home a flashy woman in her late 20s and a baby boy a few months old. The woman's name was Lily, and the baby was said to be Ken and Lily's child. The two had met through a business acquaintance and had been having an affair for a year and a half. It was around the time the company's performance began to decline, and amidst the crisis, Ken was infatuated with Lily. Although his salary had drastically dropped, it turned out he was spending what little money came home on dates and gifts for Lily. Not even providing for his own daughter's necessary expenses while she struggled working part-time. He was truly a hopeless man. We were utterly dismayed. Honestly, even knowing I had been betrayed, I couldn't even cry. Because I have a son now, I'm going to remarry Lily. I'm divorcing you, so take your useless daughter and get lost. This is also for the company. Even Mom is happy that a son has been born," Ken said triumphantly to Anna and me. Lily comes from a wealthy corporate family, and marrying her would mean financial support for the company. Moreover, Lily has 2 brothers, each with sons, so there's no need for her to take over a company, allowing her to have the best of both worlds. My mother-in-law is pleased with the wealthy fiancé and is urging them to remarry soon. Depending on the financial support from Lily's family, they plan to replace the CEO from Ken's brother to Ken. Moreover, they say they have no use for a daughter-in-law who can't bear sons or for female grandchildren, and want us to leave. I'm really sorry. But he is such a precious boy, and my mother-in-law agrees, so please understand. Ken and Lily laughed condescendingly at us and ordered us to leave the house quickly. In any case, I can't go on with him anymore, so divorce or whatever is fine. But it's frustrating to think why we must endure this treatment, and I bit my lip in anger. Such a father, I felt sorry for Anna. Then, Anna, who had been silently observing, spoke up. I know it's strange for me to say this, but you should rethink marrying him. I mean, well, it's fine if you really want him as your dad. Anna hesitated as she started to say something. Her way of opposing the remarriage seemed different, but Ken didn't notice and got furious at her words. What? What are you being so cheeky about? Anna silently met Ken's gaze and then sighed deeply before speaking. That woman, she's always all over a college boy at my workplace. It's the talk among the employees. Anna had known about Lily for some time. Lily was a regular at the cafe where Anna worked, often visiting with a boy, behaving like lovers. Lily tends to be quite rude to the cafe staff, never looking them in the face when ordering, so she probably didn't recognize Anna. Hearing this, Ken seemed quite shaken. That must be a cousin she's tutoring. But to be honest, it's hard to believe Lily could tutor a student. It seemed like a far-fetched interpretation to me. Yes, that's right. He's a cousin, though he's a bit younger. Lily agreed hastily with Ken, sounding flustered. She seemed to be hiding something she didn't want known. Right, a cousin. Then surely you know that this boy actually has a serious girlfriend, a classmate with long hair? Hearing this, Lily was visibly shocked and began to unravel. What? His main girlfriend? What are you talking about? Lily snapped at Anna, her words becoming disjointed. Beside her, Ken was turning pale. What a terrible farce. Watching this scene, I felt it was unbearable. Anna continued calmly. I don't know if he's a cousin or whatever, but this cousin told his friends that you're just someone he's seeing for sugar dating. What? Don't mess with me. Stop spouting nonsense. Lily lost her composure completely, her speech becoming erratic. Seeing Lily's bloodshot eyes, I worried that she might harm Anna. But Anna remained calm. So, that baby, is it really the boy's? What? It's not my child? What? No. It's Ken's child. I was even surprised that Anna knew so much. As the noise continued, Lily became increasingly flustered and eventually fell silent. Ken was still visibly distressed. I decided to remain calm like Anna and pressed for the truth. After a while, Lily seemed to resign herself and began to speak in bits and pieces. The child was probably the result of her relationship with the student. She had pretended to break up with him because her father found out and scolded her. She met Ken around that time and used him as a cover boyfriend, planning to raise the student's child as Ken's. Lily prefers younger men, and Ken was not really her type at all. It seemed she had completely used him. She was seriously involved with the student. Learning that she was being referred to as a sugar dating partner, Lily became disheartened and quieted down. At that moment, the baby she was holding began to cry. Can you handle that issue yourself? I have no fond memories of being pampered by Dad, so I agree with the divorce. I'll live with Mom. With that, Anna coldly turned away from Ken. Lily was no longer in a state to discuss anything, but the baby started fussing, so she was urged to go home, and the day ended with everyone dispersing. Lily cried all the way home, not soothing or caring for the baby. I felt sympathy for the baby, seeing Lily unable to feel any motherly instincts. Ken, unable to stay at home, decided to return to his parents' house for the time being. A few days later, Ken came home alone. Firstly, it turned out that the child was indeed not Ken's. After our discussion, they conducted a DNA test, which proved that there was no parental relationship between Ken and the child. It's unclear whether the child is Lily's and the student's, but it's undeniable that Ken was merely used. Ken has apparently broken up with Lily. Lily truly loved the student and wanted to have and raise his child, but opposed by her father and unwilling to ruin the future of a promising student, she decided to pretend the child was Ken's and planned to marry and raise him. She intended to divorce Ken once the student started his career and remarry him. Moreover, her relationship with the student started when he was still in high school. She had been involved with him since he was a minor. Because Lily was the daughter of a corporate magnate, she feared public exposure for getting involved with a minor at the time, so one reason she got involved with Ken was to camouflage this. Knowing that Ken had no real affection, I felt a sense of schadenfreude as I listened to the story. For the student, the relationship with Lily was purely for financial gain. He didn't care about her feelings. It was only because he was receiving money that he didn't break it off. In fact, he didn't work part-time but was financially supported by Lily, while he had a serious girlfriend at college and enjoyed his student life. When confronted by Lily, the student candidly admitted, "Why would I be serious about an old lady? I just hung out with her occasionally because she supported me. It's just sugar dating." Furthermore, despite having a child, they eventually lost contact. Abandoned by the student, Lily became despondent, unable to engage in any activity, and neglected her childcare duties. The house was in disarray, the baby cried continuously, seemingly not even properly fed. Unable to stand the thought of the child possibly dying, Lily's eldest brother and his wife temporarily took the baby to care for it. Now that Ken had broken up with Lily, he came begging, wanting to start over with me. Moreover, my mother-in-law also said that young wives can't control their desires, so it's no good. She urged me to have a son soon, while I'm still in my early 40s. What opportunistic people they are. I refuse. I will leave this house immediately, so go ahead and remarry or do whatever you want. I firmly refused. Please, think about what will happen to my life and the company. I was deceived. Ken pleaded for help, seemingly forgetting how he had treated me all this time. He's truly hopeless. I have been ostracized by your mother for not being family for years. And recently, you called Anna and me useless, remember? It's better not to be together if we're useless. That's not true. I was deceived by Lily, and now I realize that family is the most important thing. It might be late, but let's try for a son again. Still talking about having another son at this point? Do you really think you can be a family with Anna and me again, after all this time focusing only on yourself and never valuing us? Anna and I think the same. Despite his daughter's presence, Ken started crying and kept repeating, "What's going to happen to my life?" Anna was thoroughly disgusted with him. "Dad, you're really creepy. Who cares about your life? Don't you realize what you've done? Is Anna really giving up on me too? Grandma didn't mean any harm, and she really loves Anna. Let's live together as a family." I'm sorry, but I can't consider you and Grandma as family anymore. From now on, I'm cutting off our relationship. Take care with Grandma. Ken only sobbed harder in response. Although Ken was initially reluctant to agree to a divorce, his brother and sister-in-law intervened, and a divorce was eventually finalized. I wasn't very familiar with the company matters, but it turned out that Ken had angered an important client and caused a loss. Ken's arrogant behavior had been problematic several times before, and he had ruined several deals. His brother had repeatedly cautioned him, but his haughty attitude persisted, causing trouble whenever he visited clients. Recently, he had been relegated to just answering phones, but even then, he managed to anger a client. Longtime clients, who had been lenient until now, finally reached their limit and terminated their contracts. Oblivious Ken was busy having an affair with Lily during this critical period. His brother had been working for months to mend relations with clients. Through various efforts and by agreeing to fire Ken, he finally obtained the client's consent to resume business after a year and a half. The clients acknowledged his brother's persistent efforts and promised even larger orders now that Ken was no longer with the company, considering it more trustworthy. His brother did not hesitate to fire Ken. Ken had boasted that his brother was incompetent and that he was always covering for him, but in reality, it was his brother who was busy covering for Ken. Ken would visit clients and then not return, going out, or smoking and littering in the client's parking lot, causing problems even during ongoing issues due to his own actions. His brother had quite a challenge handling him, and finding the right timing, he finally decided to let him go. Thanks to his brother's efforts, the company escaped bankruptcy, but Ken ended up unemployed. Having never really worked properly and always boasting, Ken had no real skills. He tried to find a job through acquaintances, but given his past work attitude and his arrogant behavior towards clients, no one was willing to hire him. Also, given his age, reemployment was not easy, and he now seems to be struggling, juggling several part-time jobs to make ends meet. As for my mother-in-law, the stress from the company issues and the fact that Lily's child was not Ken intensified her harassment of her daughter-in-law. Finally, her daughter-in-law fell ill and was hospitalized. Despite relying on her brother-in-law and his wife, my mother-in-law maintained her arrogant attitude, saying about her daughter-in-law who was hospitalized, "I don't care what happens to a daughter-in-law who can't bear her own children and isn't family." This enraged his brother so much that he eventually kicked her out of the house. My mother-in-law never thought her usually mild-mannered son would kick her out and only started to apologize after being expelled, but it was too late. With nowhere else to go, she ended up moving into Ken's room. They are apparently living together in a small place. Having never worked because she was a lady of leisure, my mother-in-law can't start working now, and it seems they are living on Ken's meager income. However, her unchanged spending habits are consuming Ken's income, leading to constant arguments. Furthermore, with no daughter-in-law to harass, she has become even more interfering in Ken's life. She repeatedly tells Ken, "It looks bad, so you should reconcile. It's better for your daughter to have her father around. Don't separate due to adult issues. You should let your wife work full-time and manage the finances." Ken seems exasperated by these incessant demands. Financially struggling, I added to Ken's troubles by demanding child support. Ken was quite flustered, not expecting it. At first, he insisted he couldn't pay, but after realizing through a lawyer that this wouldn't hold up, he contacted me directly. With limited income and living with a spendthrift mother, he tearfully phoned me, asking if there was any way to reduce the amount or arrange a payment plan. I've left everything to my lawyer, and considering how they've looked down on us before, I have no intention of accommodating any requests. Anna also said, we should get what we are owed. We shouldn't be at a loss. Dad also shouldn't have it easy. She's a very sensible daughter. Given Ken's precarious financial situation, it seems unlikely he can pay, but I intend to have him pay the full amount over however many years it takes. Lily, who was nearly cut ties in a rage, has been allowed to stay at her parents' home under strict supervision with her child, due to concerns about her potentially causing more trouble with minors. She was initially unmanageable, but now seems to be settling down and somewhat managing childcare. The college student was also demanded to pay child support by Lily. At first, he dodged the responsibility and even became unreachable, but Lily's father brought a lawyer to the student's family home. The student's parents were furious upon learning that their son had engaged in sugar dating, impregnated the woman, and then ignored her. They apologized profusely to Lily's side, but the student himself seemed unrepentant. Frustrated, the lawyer warned that making an enemy of a corporate CEO could jeopardize his career prospects after graduating from a prestigious university, which might render his education meaningless. Reluctantly, the student agreed to pay child support. Worried about their social standing, his parents convinced him to let them initially cover the child support, which he would repay through his earnings from part-time jobs and eventual employment. Having previously earned through sugar dating without working, the student is now desperately working at a low-paying job, most of his earnings going towards repayment. I have secured full-time employment, and my salary has increased. My job is more fulfilling than ever, and though not wealthy, I now earn enough for Anna and me to live comfortably on our own. Anna continues to work part-time at the cafe and helps significantly with household chores, making our life much easier without Ken, who was nothing but a burden when he was around. Now that we don't have to deal with my sarcastic mother-in-law, Anna smiles more and lives more freely. Going forward, we want to live happily in our own way, just the two of us.